UK exports of food and drink to the EU dropped by almost half in the first 3 months of 2021 from a year compared to a year earlier in what trade group said was a measure of the impact of post-Brexit trade barriers. Produce to the value of £1.7 billion, that's almost 2 billion euros, was exported to European countries in the first quarter of this year, and that's down 46.6% compared to 2020, according to the Food and Drink Federation and industry body. The decline from 2019, when exports were unaffected by the pandemic, was even greater, a drop of 55.1% or £2 billion. Dominic Gowdy, head of international trade at the Federation, said, "The loss of £2 billion of exports to the EU is a disaster for our industry and is a very clear indication of the scale of losses that UK manufacturers face in the longer term due to new trade barriers with the EU. Companies are struggling with the costs, paperwork and delays resulting from new customs and veterinary checks, while smaller businesses have suffered from recent barriers to sending multiple shipments in a single load." New barriers, by the way, only for the UK. They are old in general. John Whitehead, director at the Food and Drink Exporters Association, said, "Whilst some of the large drop can be put down to end-of-year stockpiling, significant business has been lost as a direct result of the additional bureaucracy, customs delays and costs of trading with the EU." Exports to non-EU countries rose slightly by 0.3% to £2 billion, exceeding exports to Europe, but that was not enough to prevent a 28.1% decline in overall food and drinks exports to £3.7 billion. Products from whiskey to chocolate, lamb, cereals and sauces were affected. Whiskey sales to the EU fell 11.6% to 256 million, while chocolate sales declined more than a fifth to 99 million. And lamb and mutton sales dropped 16.8% to 74 million. Dairy products were worst hit, with milk and cream exports to Europe dropping 90%. Disruptions from COVID-19 continues to affect sales along with Brexit factors, the industry group said. Sales to Ireland, previously the UK's biggest food and drinks export market, fell by more than 2/3 to £281 million. Mr. Whitehead said members of his group are continuing to battle against inconsistent interpretations of regulations across the EU and having to weigh up whether the time and cost involved is sustainable. Mr. Gowdy called on the government to implement plans previously set out by his group, including a Food and Drink Export Council to aid UK-wide collaborations and more specialist support for exporters. The government said overall exports to the EU in March and April exceeded 2020 levels, while it was offering export helplines, webinars, support from trade advisors and a £20 million Brexit support fund for small and medium-sized businesses. The impact of the COVID pandemic across Europe has affected trade and depressed demand, and it is too early to draw any firm conclusions on the long-term impacts of our new trading relationship with the EU, the government said. "We continue to help businesses get the support they need to trade effectively with Europe and to seize new opportunities as we strike trade deals with the world's fastest growing markets." Yeah. Imports of food and drink dropped 10% in the first quarter, driven by a decline of more than 15% in imports from the EU, partly because of continued closures of UK hospitality venues as the result of COVID-19, the Food and Drink Federation said. So it's not all the pandemic, even if they try to tell you this. A lot of it is Brexit. And what else you could have seen is you can't just offset the losses from one market by going to another. You heard the numbers in the video. The trade outside the UK merely grew, and the losses from the trade with the EU cannot be offset by just going to other markets. It's not working that way. That's economics. I'll see you in my next video. Auf Wiedersehen.